So first of all, I'm grateful to this team for having given me this opportunity to be a part of this wonderful auspicious occasion on this great day. And so many known faces and faces that I've worked with, I've discussed with, we've been collectively frustrated several times. So I'm happy to be here. And I welcome this batch, the inaugural batch of Rashtram School of Public Leadership. And let me say this, that there is a certain aspect of bravery that has to be attributed to the team, but I would certainly impute a greater degree of bravery to the students, simply because under the current circumstances, for you to have invested in an unorthodox program such as this is sign of hope for the civilization, and gives a lot of people such as me confidence that our efforts and our voices aren't dissolving in ether, and that somebody is listening and somebody is paying attention. And that's a huge morale booster, because 9 out of 10 times a journey such as this can be lonely, and it's a great sign of things to come. And as someone who believes in it, I think the stars are perhaps aligning in the right direction, and they have been since 2014. And let's hope that it continues in that particular direction. And let's hope that the alignment of the stars percolates from the political level to the societal level, which is, I think, the most important, and which is perhaps more sustainable in the long run and less transient. And I hope that this particular batch takes this initiative forward. As someone who was the product of the first batch of the IIT Law School, this much I can say, that look out for a lot of teething issues. And I take the liberty of saying this. Look out for a lot of teething issues, but don't be bogged down by them. You've taken a conscious decision, hopefully as an adult. So embrace that decision. And the moment you have taken this decision to walk in this particular direction, there is no looking back. You do not have the option of looking back. I think you should shut every other option tightly. This is the only way forward. That's the only way you succeed. As someone who has made a transition from engineering to a different profession, take this as not advice, as experience coming from someone who has spent a decade in a very different profession altogether. So my suggestion would be, the only way you succeed is by not looking back. The only reason that you should look back is to draw from the skill sets that you may have gained as part of your previous experience or your previous avatar. But this is your new identity. Embrace this identity in its entirety. If somebody calls me an engineer now, I shun that person. Not because I'm ashamed of my engineering background, but I'm a lawyer now. That's my only identity. There is no other identity. That's my only identity. I don't wish to be called as an engineer turned litigator anymore. I cut that portion out completely. I use that only as a calling card if I have to deal with a particular matter, or if I have to impress someone that I've done this to. But beyond that, it has no value for me. Honestly, it has no value. Unless and until you embrace this, you will suffer from multiple identities, which I don't think is the best of things. After all, India today is the consequence of multiple identity disorder. Okay, so this is very important. Had this come from someone who had done a 5-year law program and who'd been a lawyer from the outset, or who'd been a law student from the outset, perhaps it wouldn't have carried the weight it does. And it carries weight even if I so some myself, simply because I've been through that transition. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity for you to blaze a trail as the product of this first batch. So what you are and what you become will effectively represent this institution. Faculty is never the ambassador of any institution. They are incubators. The ambassadors, the calling cards, are the products, the output. So there's a huge sense of responsibility, and I don't think you need to be told anything about responsibility, because had that not been the case, you wouldn't have joined this program in the first place. So I don't think you need any sermons on responsibility. The only suggestion that I can perhaps offer is, this is a fantastic bubble or an island that they managed to create, like a corona bubble. In the current atmosphere, given the kind of let's say situations that we live in, I think this is a fantastic initiative. And I don't think such an initiative would have been possible a decade ago. Impossible to wear this kind of an attire, to start with this kind of an invocation, and to be able to speak this language with the confidence that we do today would have been impossible. So clearly something else is happening which is beyond the ken of rationality. Something else is happening. It's your choice whether you wish to be a part of this party or not. The party is begun, get on board. As simple as that. You lose, you're the loser. So, my suggestion would be that take this opportunity and embrace it. Give it your 100%. Don't expect, and I'm not saying this, and I certainly don't represent the institution. So, this is not coming in representative capacity, and it's not an expectation setting measure. If you were to treat this institution as the means to a placement, I think you would cheapen your own choice. You would demean your own choice. Clearly, something else beyond placement has driven you to take this particular plunge. Stay true to that. The biggest thing that I think you should leave this place with is the sheer experience of being among people who are like-minded in several ways and perhaps diverse in different ways, which cannot be said of the world outside. So cherish this experience and get ready for the crucible that's waiting for you outside. You'll be tested in every possible way, particularly because of your choice. 100% because of your choice. All sorts of labels will be imputed. I could have come and given a feel-good talk. I'm trying to prepare you for what awaits you outside. I think that should be the responsibility. Because if there is an industry, that is the industry that's waiting. So I'm telling you what is waiting for you in the industry. I was having a fantastic conversation with the person who was giving me company on the way. I'm sorry, my apologies for keeping him waiting for close to an hour, Priyank Chauhan. Again, an engineer turned whatever. I mean, I had such a brilliant time speaking with him, and his own experience of making the transition from engineering to international relations. Amazing transition. In fact, that's an even more uncertain transition than making a transition to the legal profession, because there is some degree of certainty in the legal profession. You put in an X number of hours, you know what comes out, literally speaking. That's not the case with his choice. So I admire people who've made these choices. So when I was discussing these issues with him, quite a few practical issues came out. So let me try and give you something that could help you when you leave. If you're not known for your competence and you're known for your ideological positions or civilizational positions, I think that's an utter failure. You need to be known for both. Competence without an ideological position is a mercenary with a knife who's fantastic at killing. He's an assassin for all practical purposes. A professional with an ideology is a kshatriya. So that is the choice that you have to make. What is it that you wish to be? And I don't think anybody else can teach that. They can show you the path. Whether you choose to embrace that path and internalize that code is a choice that you make. And certainly in this day and age, nobody can claim to be a victim of spoon feeding. Everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody knows it. I think ideally the age of adulthood should be reduced, legally speaking. It should come down to 15, not 18, 21 anymore. Considering the crimes, of course. Therefore, what I'd suggest is, having taken this decision as an adult, and this extraordinary decision, I'm not trying to scare you away. I'm trying to tell you this is a fantastic responsibility. It's a great experience. Milk it for everything that's worth. And by the time you go out, get ready for the industry and give it your best. The good part is the stars have aligned in such a way that there is a willing audience of investors in further initiatives such as these and any spin-offs that may come out of this. Having been a first-hand recipient of this kind of, let's say, investment interest, I can tell you that should you show promise, there are enough opportunities. Notwithstanding what, let's say, popular discourse may try and tell you, there are enough people. These are the silent people. They don't shout. They don't sloganeer. They step in and they step up when they're required to. And you will always find yourself with support should you embrace Dharma. It will turn up at the right moment. Not at the moment that you expect, but at the right moment. because the universe has a different calculation, which is certainly beyond our ken and grasp at this particular moment. So your calculation and the universe's calculation may be different, but wait it out, duke it out. Think like a mountain goat whose immediate goal is the next step. You'll reach the summit ultimately. But please do not lose focus. Any number of times when the daily tussle or the daily nonsense that you get to hear could be disheartening, disillusioning. I would suggest that there are two options. Ignore. I'm not in favor of that option. Should you ignore, do it for the long run. But if you don't ignore, channel. Never underestimate this politically incorrect advice, the value of anger. Anyone who tells you that dharma and anger don't go together, I'm sorry, read Subramanya Bharati. There is a value for Raudram. Raudram is one of the Navarasas. It's one of the qualities that you have to, and when you see Ravi Varma's paintings, it's fantastic the way he represents Raudram as a characteristic, as a feature, as a quality of a human being. The balance that you strike between intellectualism and that anger, because this is not going to be an empty academic pursuit. This is not going to be a pursuit for someone who's just interested in reading books for the rest of his life. I don't see what is the point of that. If you wish to be an individual who's isolated himself somewhere in some farmhouse, more power to you. I hope you have the money to continue doing that. But if that's not the case, and if it has to mean something, then all of this must translate to application. And dharmic philosophies do not strike a balance between practice and theory. They don't strike a distinction between practice and theory. Practice and theory go hand in hand. They go 100% hand in hand. We don't believe in this Western binary at all under any circumstances. Nothing that is known, if it is unworthy of application, either in the present or in the future, is worth knowing. There is some application that needs to be found. So it's a test of this. Some people choose to read what they believe is useful. Some people make use of everything that they've read. You choose what you wish to be. I think it's always better to be in the second category, because that shows that the mind is nimble. The mind finds areas of application. I think that's the way to go. So all of this is going to be extremely important because it's an unforgiving, malicious industry out there. So prepare for it each day. The more you sweat it out here, the less you'll bleed outside. That's the straightforward policy that a soldier follows. That's the only way to go forward. And in terms of the school's thought process, the one thing that I think is extremely important, which is representative of its dharmic philosophy, is that the tendency to separate politics from academia or policy from academia and see them as two different walled gardens which operate in their own silos, I think has proven to be an utter failure. Surprisingly, that's not the model that's followed in the West. We seem to assume that that is the Western model and we seem to be following it here. So that wall has to be broken. Under our philosophy, politics is not a gutter that you're supposed to run away from or escape or evade under any circumstances. The more you do it, you're actually expanding the scope of that particular sewer, if that's what you believe it is. If you treat that as a societal yajna, then you have no other option but to contribute to it. So anything that you do has to translate to some kind of policy or has to translate to even politics. I have zero problems with the idea or the word of politics, not one bit. So this silo-based approach to civil society, to politics and academia needs to go. And I think it's a fantastic experiment and a fantastic incubator for you to pull all of these together, seam, let's say, all of these together and see how they work. So I can certainly say that people like me are more than happy to support initiatives that come out of this particular place. 100%. Because we've been waiting for somebody to do this because not everybody is an institution builder. So kudos to this team for having built an institution from scratch. Because Anybody, I think, with some amount of effort, and there is always an incentive to be a solo act. Because you hog all the limelight, that always happens. But institution building requires a lot of patience, commitment, discipline, going to the nuts and bolts, having to make a lot of sacrifices. People with these kind of qualifications need not live here, seems to be the motto of this country at this point, where it is literally a greener pasture, or let's say a launch pad to a greener pasture somewhere in California or New Jersey or whichever goddamn place that is. I don't care. So the point is, for them to have sacrificed all their goals and for having done this, I think they they deserve a round of applause. Please bear this in mind. Each time there is a teething issue that comes to your knowledge, bear this in mind. Be patient. As the product of a first batch of the IIT Law School, despite it being the IIT, so to speak, the law school obviously was a nascent institution that was free riding on the coattails of the IIT brand. It had no reputation of itself. I will never call myself an IITian, not at all. I'll be known only by my individual brand, not by as an IITian, because I don't have any right to lay claim to that particular brand under any circumstances. That is a brand created by BTECs. Others shouldn't be free riding on that particular brand under any circumstances. That's a sign of inferiority, and that's a sign of saying that you're not capable of creating another brand. I'm sorry, I don't agree with either. So therefore, you have the opportunity to do this. So bear this in mind and contribute, cooperate. So just as I say, break down the walls between, let's say, the praxis and theory. In terms of running this place, I think that wall needs to be broken equally, where I think there should be a spirit of cooperation, not trade unionism under any circumstances. Not at all. Having been a typical trade unionist last venture in my law school, I can say this for a fact. I was almost about to be rusticated in the 5th semester. I'd have been behind by an entire year. Fortunately, my grades saved me. Otherwise, I'd have passed out in 2010 as opposed to 2009. I had a midnight disco. Disco is disciplinary committee. IT guys will tell you. I had literally a midnight disco where I had to sign a contract basically saying, I will not do this again henceforth. But I was laughing as I was signing that contract saying, this has no legal validity. I know this. So, because a contract signed under duress has no value. So this is clearly under duress. And some genius also added this line that you will give up all legal remedies against any future disciplinary action. Array, this violates the contract act at the outset. So I said, that's precisely why I'm the last bencher who keeps smirking. So what do? You've drafted such a contract. So anyways, the point is, I don't think those antiques have any place here. Because I think you've made a much more sensible decision and you've thought through what you're doing. So give this your best. I will not take more time. I will support this institution to the best of my limited capabilities in every way I can. And I hope to see this as, I won't use the word modern. I have a serious problem with the word modern. It has serious colonial underpinnings and undergirding. I'll simply call it contemporary Takshashila. I hope it becomes one. And therefore, the hope is that we don't keep citing one Chanakya and one Kautilya and one Arthashastra. And the hope is that more comes out of this place. All the best. Jai Hind. Vande Mataram.